Hello friends, so today we are off to the Titanic Distillers here in Belfast. So if you don't know, Belfast is actually really well known for creating the Titanic. It was built here, it just left Southampton. There's so many things that you can do. There's a Titanic Belfast where you can get afternoon tea, and also the Titanic Museum, which I highly recommend. It's definitely probably the best thing to do while you're here in Belfast. But now we're gonna try out the Titanic Distillers because Nathan loves whiskey. He used to love beer, but it would actually make his sinuses go crazy. So he's gotten into whiskey and now has whiskey and fire nights with the boys where they end up chatting about stuff in life, which is just such a fun night for them. So I figured it would be a fun thing to do for him to go to a distillery tours.
We parked up and walked across to the distillery to begin our tour, which started with the dry docks. Belfast was famous for shipbuilding and the textile industry back in the day, as well as Irish whiskey too. The Belfast Harbour Commissioners commissioned this dry dock, the biggest in the world at the time, to be able to accommodate the Titanic and the Olympic. They're pretty much identical to each other, so much so sometimes people can't tell the difference in some photos. This is where the Titanic came to get fitted out before setting sail in 1912, so spent roughly about 2.5 weeks here and 10 months in the shipyard just across the way. It was said they spent equivalent to £50 million to today's money on building the dry dock. While they didn't probably see their investment make a return in their own pockets, it brought so much to Belfast with the amount of work for people, and still does today with the tourism. Back in the pump house, this is where the distillery is, and a lot of the original features are still there today. They used 3 copper stills to go through the process of taking the barley and malting it, mashing it, letting it ferment, and distilling it. It was so fascinating understanding what goes into making whiskey and what makes each whiskey different. We also got to sample some as well. We then finished off our tour with some tea and tray bakes, which were yummy, and a tour around the shop. The tour also came with 2 Titanic glasses to take home.
Woo!
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, isn't it?
Wow!
Yeah.
So we just had the loveliest time on our tour. We learned so much history because it was actually built where the Titanic came in, and Harland and Wolff leased this location for their ship repairs and stuff. And it was just so fascinating getting the history behind it, but also learning all about the whiskey. So really, really enjoyed that side of things. It was just a really, really great tour, and definitely something you have to do when you're in Belfast.
Now, time for some Titanic afternoon tea. It is the best afternoon tea I've had so far in Northern Ireland, and it's just across the way in the Titanic Quarter at the Titanic Belfast. Incredible food, service, and paying attention to the theme and aesthetic as well. There's a slideshow telling of the history of some of the passengers on board the Titanic, and it's right at the grand staircase, which was a replica of what was on board the Titanic and the most famous part of it. I highly, highly recommend going for afternoon tea here as well. Honestly, you are in for an amazing day in Belfast.